What's the most nightmarish execution you can imagine? Now take that horror and make it mechanical. Picture a man tied to a giant wooden machine, his belly slit open, and his intestines slowly wound out of his body by a turning crank, inch by inch, as a crowd of Romans watches in stunned silence. This isn't a gruesome fantasy. This was the fate of Erasmus, Bishop of Formiae, whose brutal death in 303 AD became one of the darkest legends in Christian history. Welcome to the grim tale of Saint Erasmus, better known as Saint Elmo, whose torment and execution shocked even the cruel standards of Rome. Why should you care about a story this old? Because Erasmus's death isn't just a grotesque anecdote. It's a chilling case study of how power tries to crush belief, and how one man's endurance in the face of unimaginable pain turned him into a legend. By the end of this video, you'll understand not only how Erasmus died in one of the most horrifying ways ever conceived, but why his story still echoes through history and even lives on in the stormy seas sailors sail today. Our story begins decades earlier in the early 4th century, a time when Christianity was considered a crime against the empire. Emperor Diocletian had unleashed a sweeping persecution, determined to wipe the faith out of Rome once and for all. Christians were hunted, tortured, and executed in every province, and among them was a bishop named Arasmus. Rather than wait for certain death, Erasmus fled. For 7 years he hid in the mountains of Syria, surviving as a fugitive on Mount Lebanon. According to legend, during this exile, an angel appeared to him, urging him to return to his people. And Erasmus, instead of running forever, chose to obey. He left hiding and began the dangerous journey back home. But Rome was watching. Soldiers captured him and dragged him in chains to face Diocletian himself. The emperor demanded he renounce his faith and sacrifice to the Roman gods. Erasmus refused without hesitation. That refusal signed his death warrant. The tortures began immediately. He was scourged with whips, weighted with lead, until strips of flesh peeled from his body. He was beaten with rods until bones cracked. Then, boiling oil, molten wax, and burning pitch were poured over his skin, cooking him alive. The smell of burned flesh filled the air. By every natural law, he should have died right there on the spot. But Erasmus didn't. He endured. The crowd was stunned. To the faithful, it looked like a miracle. To Diocletian, it was humiliation. Furious, the emperor threw Erasmus into a dungeon to starve. Days turned into weeks, but according to legend, Erasmus escaped, miraculously free once more. Rather than hide, he returned to preaching with even greater zeal. In one city, he was said to have raised a young boy from the dead, a miracle that sent shockwaves through the region and brought hundreds of new converts. But that kind of fame was dangerous. His defiance and his miracles reached the ears of a far crueler ruler, Emperor Maximian. Maximian, determined to break this defiant bishop, devised a torment designed to shred him into silence. Soldiers forced Erasmus into a barrel lined with sharp iron spikes and rolled it down a hill. Imagine the scene, the barrel bouncing, crashing, grinding into stone, the spikes tearing into his flesh with every jolt. When it smashed open at the bottom, Erasmus was somehow still alive. Bloodied, broken, but alive. Even his executioners recoiled, but Maximian wasn't finished. He threw Erasmus back into prison, this time hoping starvation would finish him off. Yet once again, Erasmus escaped. Rome had failed again, and every survival, every rumored miracle, only strengthened his legend. By now, Rome's patience had snapped. In 303 AD, they decided his end would be final and unforgettable. No more second chances. This time, his execution would be a spectacle of pure terror. And so, we return to that square. Torches flare in the night, the crowd presses in, and the monstrous windlass looms. Erasmus is bound to the device. The order is given. A knife slices open his stomach. A strangled cry escapes his lips as blood spills across the stones. But the worst is yet to come. Executioners reach into the wound and pull out a length of his intestines. Gasps ripple through the square. Soldiers themselves look away. The loose end is tied to the crank of the windlass. Slowly, methodically, the torturers begin to turn. The rope pulls tight. Erasmus's intestines are wound out of his body, inch by inch, coiling around the wooden spindle. His screams echo through the night. Some spectators vomit, others cover their eyes, but no one can look away. Even now, he is offered a chance to recant, bow to Rome's gods and be spared. Erasmus refuses. Teeth clenched, voice trembling, he prays instead. His spirit holds even as his body is torn apart. The windlass keeps turning. His life drains with every rotation. Blood pours across the stones. His vision fades. And finally, after what must have felt like an eternity of agony, Erasmus falls silent. The bishop who had survived whips, fire, spikes, and starvation had finally been broken, but not in spirit. Rome thought it had won. But Erasmus's death only made his legend grow. Christians hailed him as a saint, sailors claimed him as their protector, and the eerie blue light that dances on shipmasts during storms became known as Saint Elmo's fire, a sign, they believed, of his watchful presence. Historians still debate whether Erasmus truly died this way, or whether the gruesome details were added later. But the truth almost doesn't matter, because the story endured. Erasmus became a symbol of defiance, of faith that no empire could erase. So, what can we take away from this brutal tale? First, the reminder that cruelty has always been a tool of power, and rulers will go to monstrous lengths to enforce obedience. That endurance, even in the face of unthinkable agony, can turn a victim into a legend. And finally, that history's darkest stories remind us how far we've come, and why we must never allow such inhumanity to return. If this story shocked you, leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe for more journeys into the shadows of history, because history isn't only written in glory, it's written in blood, in fire, and in the courage of those who refuse to bow.